Okay, yep, everything's working fine now. Right, I just want to, today today was a better day. When I say today, it's 2:30 in the morning. Yesterday was terrible. I suffered from terrible flatulence and constipation. I've been telling you about my driving experiences from a very young boy, and I thought you might like to know a little bit about my background. Maybe you don't, I don't know. But I'm doing this instead of writing a book, so in a way this is the only record I can leave of my life. Did you understand? Because I'm going to tell you the things that are wrong with me very quickly, what I've got wrong. Crohn's disease, surgery twice, so I now have short bowel syndrome, so it's very hard to control my diet. It goes from diarrhoea to constipation. I've got medication sometimes to slow the colon up, and sometimes I've got medication to make it soft and move. It's very, very difficult. It's like walking a tightrope. I'm often stuck in the house and I can't really leave the toilet because I never know what my situation is regarding the needs of a toilet. So let's just run through. I've also got chronic kidney disease now. Chronic kidney disease, it's not the same as kidney failure. If it progresses, it can lead to kidney failure. In fact, I was actually offered dialysis, but my creatine level has been quite stable for many years. So apart from the usual things of the kidneys don't work as well as they should, and I've got special tablets to get rid of warm water because my ankles tend to swell. But I opted out of dialysis because the quality of life would be even worse. So the kidney disease is under control. My blood pressure is fine, but I've got COP. I'm not quite sure what it stands for. It's a lung disease and asthma, and then I've got neuropathy, which means that my legs and feet are very sensitive, sometimes to the cold. Sometimes I feel cold in the legs and feet when they're not cold. They're very, very hot. Whenever there's a change of weather from low pressure to high pressure, I may have 2 or 3 days when my legs and feet burn so much. In fact, my feet are always so hot that even in the winter, I wear sandals. Okay, so I've also got a problem with my neck. I think I should get some kind of neck support, and then I've got my knees are knackered. Can't walk. I thought I might have had surgery on the knees, but they said you're too old, and it's a big operation to complete knee replacement. So I put up with that. I can manage quite well, and I've got the mobility scooter fit when the weather's better, and I get a good subsidised taxi. I get a good subsidised taxi service. I'm not very fluent tonight, am I? Not very fluent. And the last thing I mentioned is that I have an enlarged prostrate, which is quite common when you get older, and that is causing me some urine problems. Last night I had very little sleep because I had the urge to go to the toilet and do a wee, but nothing would come. So they really kept me awake quite a lot last night. So tonight I decided not to drink a lot of water, say 2 hours before I go to bed. I should make this podcast now, and then I'll try and get to bed as quickly as possible. Now, I think actually talking about one's health is quite boring, because when my mother was getting on in years, she used to go to old people's, just used to go to lunch once a week with old people. I actually went with her once myself, and I visited her. And she said, the trouble is with old people, all they do is moan about the health. Well, that is not what I'm about. I'm just telling you the facts. When I was born, I wasn't breathing, and I was what they call a blue baby. I then got pneumonia, which before antibiotics. So I think I must have told you about this before. But anyway, when I was about 4 years of age, I got an ear infection. I was in hospital for 3 months. I had operation removing bone from behind my ear to clear the infection. And I was in there for 3 months. I think I mentioned that to you as well. I also, when I came home, because I hadn't seen my mother for 3 months, I had a problem with my speech. I had a bad stammer. And then I had an ear infection, which was treated. That cleared up. And then we left our home suddenly. I think maybe, I'm not quite sure what the situation was with we were living in a house, and we had to leave suddenly, and we found ourselves homeless. This would be about 1946, just after the war, and we were taken to a big building which was called an institute, where there were families. We all shared a huge room and just given a little area in the corner, and the cooking was in a separate area. So I think that affected my mother and father quite badly, and we were homeless. My father had to leave and find somewhere else to get some digs. We stayed there for a few days, and then we were sent to a children's home, which I found to be very nice, because we had very good food, we had very good accommodation, very good care. This is about 1946, yeah, that's right, before the health service, in fact. How my parents paid for my mastoid operation, I don't know, but I think often there was some charitable institution to help families who were quite short of money, and we were quite short of money in those days. So my sister was older than me, and she was very unhappy in the children's home, and she phoned my father. And she said, if you don't find somewhere for us to live all together, I'm going to run away. So that put quite a strain on my father, and he did find a place. It was like a basement. I describe it as a cellar, because you only had a tiny little window at the top, very little light, and it was only two rooms. A living room, which had a fireplace, a gas cooker, a little to the left there's a little scullery, no refrigeration, but the little scullery. So in the summer you had to put the milk in a bucket of water to keep it cold, otherwise it went off very quickly, because we didn't have refrigeration. My mother didn't have a washing machine. She did the washing by using a galvanized bucket on top of the gas stove, and very, very hard work for my mother. And every Saturday we had a bath. We had a tin bath which you brought in from the outside. It used to hang outside on a nail. She brought it in. We all took our turn in the bath, and because the water had to be heated on the gas cooker. And then she would always have big jugs of water, which she mixed at the right temperature so she could wash her hair and put the water over our heads so we were clean. And I think my mother would go, I never saw my mother and father have a bath, because we then went to bed. And I guess my mother and father then, they had their wash. But it was quite difficult. My mother worked very, very hard. And she actually worked in the school. She was a very, very good cook, and she was cooking the school dinners in the school. And we lived in that basement. In the winter, it was terribly cold. There's no ventilation. The only heat we had was the coal fire, and we often ran out of coal. And then we had a little electric fire with one bar, electric bar, but that was very expensive to run. And we often didn't have the money for the gas meter or the electric meter. So my father would make coins by cutting little circular pieces of metal, the same size as coin, and he'd put those in the meter. Now, when the men came to empty the meter every 3 months, there were always some. It never caused a problem. They just said that you have to pay so and so for these coins that you put in. I don't know how it worked, but anyway, that was day-to-day living, and it was quite hard. But I was fine. I was never depressed or unhappy. I had friends. I started a little club called the Black Hand Gang. Every member had to have a card and a passport to get in. And I had many hobbies. I built a rabbit hutch and had rabbits in the backyard. The only toilet we had was in the backyard, outside. So even in the winter, you had to go out in the outside to the toilet. So it was pretty cold. And also in the bedrooms, there was no heat. There was only 2 rooms. My mother and father slept in the living room on the bed settee, and us 3 children slept in the back bedroom. 3 little beds by 2 sisters and myself. And in the winter, it was so cold. I think we had a hot water bottle, which they put in under the bed, which helped a little bit. And then we put lots of blankets, and sometimes we put overcoats all on top of the bed to make you warm. But you might shiver there for 20 minutes before you got warm. But I went to school when I was 5. I love school. I went to read quite quickly, and I read the beano, the dandy, the eagle, the rover, the hotspur, and then I started to read all the Enid Blyton books. I was a member of the choir in St. Paul's Church. I was there for 4 years, which I enjoyed. I used to go twice a week for practice, and on Sundays twice a week. And we did special occasions, Easter and Christmas, weddings and funerals. And I wore a cassock, which is black, down to the ground, and a white surplice that goes on top, and a ruff around my neck. Not like this, but a nice ruff. So, yeah. And, of course, when they had the sermon, the vicar used to preach a sermon, which lasted about 20 minutes. And we used to secretly read comics just below where no one could see us, which the choir master didn't like us doing that, but because we didn't listen to the sermon, I honestly did not learn anything about religion. Even though I was 4 years in the choir, it wasn't a spiritual experience. But I will say this, from the age of about 3 or 4, on Sunday I went to Sunday school, So of course we learnt the Bible stories, and I enjoyed it. All young children from about the age of 3 or 4, and every Sunday would go there for an hour, and I think that was the only time that my parents would have an hour to themselves to do whatever they wanted to do, because there wasn't any privacy in that little flat. But that was the only time when the mum and dad could be on their own for an hour. Okay. So I used to go fishing. I collected stamps. In the autumn, we got the conkers from the trees. We put them in the oven and put holes with skewers through the conkers out of string. So we used to have games with conkers. We also collected and played with marbles and cigarette cards. Cigarette cards were in the packets of cigarettes, and we used to collect those. There were 50 cards to one set. Could be footballs or cricketers, racing drivers, famous people, all kinds of things. On the back of the card, there was a description of what about the person, and a nice picture on the front in colour. And there were 50 of those to a set. So the idea was to collect the set. And of course, collecting stamps was a great hobby of mine. I enjoyed that. I also learned a lot about the world, because the album that came with the stamps had maps and told you all about the countries. This is before all the country names in Africa, for example, changed. Many countries changed. Now they've all been changed as they became independent. So I have happy life. I think I had a little bike. And we also had a good Christmas. Where my mother and father got money from, I don't know. But we also had a lovely Christmas. I think I had a scooter one year. And I think maybe I'm not sure if I had a bike. I know when I was very young, I had a little red 3-wheeler bike. But later, I got a bigger bike, but probably second-hand, probably quite cheap. And I was very good at fixing things and repairing things. So we did that as boys. And we also used to listen to the radio. And we didn't have any TV in those days, of course. The radio, we used to listen to The Journey to the Moon. Very exciting. At the cinema, we'd see Flash Gordon. We'd watch the cowboy films. And on the radio, every week there was a show about Biggles. He was a superhero, but he was always a fighter pilot, and that was very exciting to hear about his exploits. So that's all I'm going to say for now, because I'm not going. And I promise you this: apart from do you really want to know what medication I'm on? I'm not sure. It's not that interesting, is it? Because I've got 20 or 30 different medications, and I think that's quite enough for now. I'm quite tired, but that's a little bit my early life, and tomorrow I hope that we can carry on with something a bit more interesting for the general listener. Okay, so thanks very much indeed. All the best to you. Good night. Bye-bye.